China didn't publish an update. They published a verdict. There was no press conference, no advance warning, no orchestrated moment of triumph. Just a silent upload of FITS files, photometric measurements, astrometric positions, and timestamp data streams that appeared in their national archives as if they were ordinary administrative records. Yet when astronomers opened those files, what they found was anything but ordinary. It was the one outcome the Western astronomical community had prayed would never materialize. The new Chinese observations of the interstellar object 3I/Atlas, taken during a highly suspicious 36-hour blackout across nearly all major Western telescopes, do not merely close a data gap. They obliterate the previous timeline. They reveal an object that brightened at the wrong time, expanded its coma in ways that violate every standard model, grew a tail that contradicts earlier observations, and exhibited behavior of almost mechanical precision. Nothing about the object itself appeared to change, yet everything about how we understand it did. It was as though 3I/Atlas had not been waiting for the sun's heat. It had been waiting for us, for the exact moment when only one nation on Earth still had its eyes open. The story begins on July 1, 2025, when the Atlas survey in Chile discovered the third confirmed interstellar object ever seen by humanity. From the first orbital calculation, something was wrong. It was moving far too quickly, over 209,000 kilometers per hour relative to the Sun, on a hyperbolic path that had never been bound to our star. Western facilities threw every resource at it. Hubble, JWST, the VLT, Gemini, all working in concert to maintain uninterrupted coverage. Then, at the precise moment the object entered the most critical phase of its perihelion passage, the western sky went dark for 36 hours. 5 flagship observatories went offline simultaneously. Gyroscope recalibrations, mirror recoding, instrument swaps, scheduled maintenance, every excuse perfectly timed. In that narrow window, 3I/Atlas skimmed dangerously close to the sun's glare, the very interval when a comet's true nature is laid bare through outgassing jets, coma expansion, dust-to-gas ratios, and nucleus fragmentation. A natural comet has nothing to conceal. An artificial one has everything to reveal. The West blinked. China did not. While the world's largest mirrors were covered or pointed away, high-altitude observatories in Tibet, Qinghai, and Yunnan stayed online. No coinciding maintenance, no scheduling conflicts, no downtime. Under cold, steady skies, Chinese telescopes recorded continuous astrometry, multiband photometry, coma morphology, tail development, dust grain size distributions, and brightness curves, every exposure timestamped to the millisecond and streamed through redundant fiber to servers in Beijing and Nanjing. What they saw was not what the West expected when their instruments came back online. The coma had expanded toward the sun. The tail had lengthened at an impossible rate. Brightness jumped 0.3 magnitudes in mere hours. The dust population shifted toward large carbonaceous grains, behavior unknown in any comet with this object's prior chemistry. China did not simply fill the gap. They exposed a chasm. A comet's coma is supposed to be a passive halo of sublimated ice and dust. 3I/Atlas did not sublimate. It reacted. Earlier JWST and Spherex spectra had already shown a coma dominated by CO2 rather than water, an anomaly suggesting an origin far outside our system's birth environment. But during the blackout at peak solar heating, Chinese instruments recorded a structured brightness surge, an expansion front, and a deliberate reorganization of the dust cloud. It was not random outgassing. It was a sequence. When Western telescopes resumed operations, the object had already traveled 1.2 million kilometers, enough to render high-resolution modeling ambiguous. China's uninterrupted dataset stitched the timeline back together seamlessly. The conclusion was inescapable. This was not a comet struggling to endure the sun. It was an object responding to it. Every photon China collected passed through cryogenically cooled detectors, real-time atmospheric correction, multiple redundancy checks, and cross-calibration against Gaia DR3 and Landolt standards, while mirrors 4 times larger on the other side of the planet recorded nothing. The result was the first continuous photometric light curve of an interstellar object at perihelion. The data showed sunward coma elongation, jet-like brightening, dust ratios incompatible with water-ice sublimation, and a nucleus far too small, perhaps only 300 meters, to produce the observed activity naturally. Western science returned to a wounded dataset. 36 missing hours during a fast-moving interstellar perihelion is not a gap. It is a scar. Without China's observations, the sudden asymmetry of the coma, the sunward jets, the abrupt dust-to-gas shift, and subtle orbital refinements would have remained forever hidden. When Western models were finally forced to incorporate the Chinese data, they no longer matched any known natural comet. Silence from NASA, ESA, and NOIR Lab spoke louder than any press release. Within hours of the files appearing on the ChinaVO portal, raw, unfiltered, and unaccompanied by commentary, the Minor Planet Center issued a revised orbit. Uncertainty collapsed from 25 arcseconds to 5. Institutions across the United States and Europe downloaded the datasets and ran their own reductions. The hyperbolic trajectory was now nailed with unprecedented accuracy. But the deepest shock was not the precision. It was the pattern. The coma elongation was not noise. It was directed. The brightness surge was not random. It followed solar flux almost as if anticipated. When all datasets, Chinese BVR photometry, spheric spectra, Hubble imaging, Gaia astrometry, were finally merged, a single coherent timeline emerged. A CO2-dominated object that should not behave this way, a nucleus too small for the observed coma, dust-to-gas ratios far outside solar system norms, and response times to solar heating faster than physics allows for passive ice. This was no ejected planetesimal. This was a phenomenon. China's data make no explicit claim of alien origin. They offer no conspiracy and no speculation. They simply present measurements the West deliberately or conveniently missed. An object that brightened only when Western eyes were closed. A tail that reoriented only under Chinese observation. A coma that expanded against every natural gradient. Activity that looked less like melting and more like activation. The fear is not that 3I/Atlas is dangerous. The fear is that it is deliberate. In the end, it was not the images or the impossible brightness curves that unsettled the astronomical community. It was the silence from the West and the unanswerable clarity from the East. For the first time in the modern era, humanity's view of an interstellar visitor was split not by interpretation, but by raw information. One nation holds the missing 36 hours. The universe did not wait for the rest of us to catch up. As 3I/Atlas now accelerates out of the solar system, continuing to evolve under sunlight in ways no model predicted, one truth can no longer be ignored. We did not merely detect an interstellar object. We detected interstellar intent, ancient, passive, or otherwise. And whatever it truly is, it just demonstrated with chilling precision that it knows exactly when we are not looking.